The rebellious princess. Princess Vera stood at the edge of the grand balcony, overlooking the vast city of Zarathar, the capital of the Silurian Empire. The alien skyline stretched out in front of her, filled with sleek towers and hovering spacecraft, all glittering under the pale light of two distant moons. But none of it impressed her. To her, this was a symbol of everything wrong with the Empire. The Silurians were powerful, ruthless, and expanding their control over weaker planets. Vera had seen the effects of their empire's harsh rule: slavery, oppression, and fear. Unlike her family, who saw this as their birthright, she could not support the cruelty her people brought to other worlds. She wanted peace, fairness, and justice for all species, not just her own. But that made her a problem. Vera had always been rebellious. From a young age, she questioned the ways of the Empire, openly criticizing her father, King Cauldron, in front of the royal council. Her views made her unpopular among the noble families, especially with her cousin, Prince Kether, who was next in line for the throne. Kether was loyal to the Empire and its brutal methods. He saw Vera's ideas as dangerous. Tonight was no different. Vera had just returned from another heated argument with her father. She had begged him to reconsider the Empire's latest plan to invade a peaceful planet called Dravos, which had no military and posed no threat. But the king had refused to listen. "We are Xalorians," he had said coldly. "We conquer or we die." Vera felt helpless. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't change the minds of her family or the council. They were too blinded by power and greed. As she looked out into the night sky, she wondered if she even belonged here. "I don't fit in this world," she whispered to herself. "Not like them." Little did Vera know, her rebellious nature had made her enemies, not just in the council, but within her own family. Prince Kether, who had been watching her closely, had grown tired of her constant defiance. He saw her as a threat to the future of the Empire, and in his mind, threats had to be eliminated. The perfect opportunity came when Vera was assigned to lead a diplomatic mission to a nearby planet. Kether, working in secret, made sure the mission would fail. He hired a group of mercenaries to intercept her convoy and take her captive. It would look like a random attack, but in reality, it was a carefully planned trap. Vera was unaware of the danger that awaited her. She was too focused on finding a way to make a difference, to stop the Empire from destroying more innocent lives. As she boarded her ship the next morning, she didn't notice the suspicious glances from the royal guards, nor the hidden signals they gave each other. The trap was set, and the rebellious princess was walking right into it. Betrayed by her own people, Princess Vera sat in the cold, dark cell of the space station, her wrists bound by heavy metal cuffs. The sharp sting of betrayal cut deeper than the bruises on her body. The mission had been a disaster, but it wasn't the mercenaries that shocked her the most. It was the truth she had discovered after her capture. Her own people had set her up. It had all started smoothly. Vera's convoy had left Zarathar on what was supposed to be a peaceful diplomatic mission. As the leader of the mission, she had hoped to prove that the Silurian Empire didn't need to conquer every planet by force. But only hours into their journey, they had been attacked. The mercenaries struck fast, with precision and brutality that didn't match a random attack. Vera had fought back, using her training as a royal, but there were too many of them. Her guards had fallen quickly, almost as if they hadn't even tried to defend her. That's when she realized something was wrong. Now, sitting in her cell, Vera pieced it together. The guards' strange behavior, the way they had hesitated before the attack. Someone had planned this. And not just anyone. This was an inside job. But why? She thought of her cousin, Prince Kether, and a chill ran down her spine. He had always been against her ideas, against her vision for a more peaceful empire. Could he really be behind this? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. The cell door slid open, revealing a tall, rough-looking man. He wore a patch over one eye and had a cruel smile on his face. "The princess herself," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. You're worth a lot of credits, you know that. Vera glared at him, but stayed silent. The man leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. I bet you're wondering who sold you out. Let me give you a hint. It wasn't us. He chuckled. Your own people don't want you back. In fact, they paid good money to make sure you never return. The confirmation hit Vera like a punch to the gut. She had suspected, but hearing it spoken out loud made it real. Her own people, her own family, had abandoned her. Prince Kether must have arranged it. He had always seen her as a threat to his future rule. And now he had ensured she wouldn't interfere with his plans. But Vera wasn't the type to give up easily. She had always been a fighter, and she wasn't going to let Kether win. Not like this. You may think you've won, she said, her voice steady despite the anger boiling inside her. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The man laughed again, clearly amused by her defiance. We'll see about that, princess. We'll see. He turned and left, the door sliding shut behind him with a heavy thud. As the darkness closed in again, Vera clenched her fists. She was alone, betrayed, and trapped. But she wasn't broken. If anything, this betrayal only made her more determined. One way or another, she would escape. And when she did, there would be a reckoning. A human hero. Far across the galaxy, John Matthews, a human smuggler, was sitting in a rundown cantina on the edge of a lawless planet. The place was crowded with criminals, bounty hunters, and shady traders, all trying to make a deal or avoid getting caught. For John, it was just another day in a life of avoiding trouble. John had once been a soldier, a part of Earth's defense force, but that was a long time ago. After humans were ignored by the more advanced alien species, Earth had fallen into chaos, and John had left it behind. Now he made his living flying dangerous missions for whoever could pay him enough. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it kept him alive. As John sat nursing his drink, he overheard a group of bounty hunters talking in hushed voices. He wasn't paying much attention until he heard something that caught his ear. The Xalorian princess. Big money. Captive in the Outer Rim. John's interest piqued. A Xalorian princess. That was unusual. He knew about the Xalorian Empire. Everyone did. They were one of the most powerful and feared races in the galaxy. But a princess, kidnapped. That was big news. John leaned back in his chair, pretending not to listen, but his mind was racing. The bounty hunters continued their conversation, unaware that John was now paying close attention. She's being held in an old space station, one of them whispered. The boss is planning to sell her to the highest bidder. The Xalorians won't even care. They want her gone. John frowned. That last part caught him off guard. The Xalorians not wanting their own princess back. That didn't make sense. But then again, Xalorians weren't exactly known for their kindness or loyalty, especially to those who caused trouble in their empire. A part of John wanted to ignore it. This wasn't his problem. Getting involved with a Xalorian princess could only mean trouble, but another part of him, the part that still held on to some sense of honor, couldn't let it go. If the princess was in danger, and her own people had abandoned her, then she was as good as dead. John sighed and rubbed his temples. What am I doing? He muttered to himself. He had no love for the Xalorians, but the thought of leaving someone to die didn't sit right with him. He'd seen too much of that in his time as a soldier. Before he could talk himself out of it, John stood up and left the cantina. He had a ship, and he had contacts. Finding this princess wouldn't be easy, but it wouldn't be impossible either. If nothing else, he could at least see if the rumors were true. And if they were, maybe he could help her, though he wasn't sure why he cared. John made his way through the busy marketplace, his mind already working on a plan. The old soldier in him knew how to handle a rescue, and if this princess needed saving, he was the man for the job. He wasn't doing it for money or glory. Maybe, deep down, he just wanted to prove that humans were capable of something great, even in a galaxy that had forgotten them. As he boarded his ship and prepared for takeoff, John's eyes narrowed in determination. The Silurian Empire might not care about their princess, but John Matthews did, and he wasn't about to let her die without a fight. The rescue mission. John Matthews flew his old spaceship, the Valkyrie, through the dark void of space, heading toward the coordinates he had managed to gather from his contacts. The location was an abandoned space station, hidden deep in the outer rim of the galaxy. It was the perfect place for criminals to hide someone valuable, someone like Princess Vera. He checked his ship's scanners, making sure he wasn't being tracked. The place was crawling with mercenaries, but John was used to sneaking into dangerous spots. Years of running from trouble had taught him how to stay under the radar. He wasn't here for a fight. Not yet, at least. The space station loomed ahead, its rusty metal structure barely holding together. It looked like it hadn't been used properly in years, which made it the perfect hideout. John's ship docked quietly at a small, forgotten port on the side of the station. He grabbed his blaster, a simple weapon, but reliable, and strapped it to his side. This wasn't going to be easy. Inside the station, the halls were dimly lit and filled with the faint hum of old machinery. John moved quietly, his footsteps soft against the metal floor. He followed the directions he had been given, heading deeper into the heart of the station. Meanwhile, in a cold cell far below, Vera sat in silence. Her wrists were still bound, and her hope was running out. She had tried to escape earlier, but the guards had been too strong. Now she was more closely watched than ever. She had no idea that help was on the way, or that a human, someone she had never met, was risking his life to save her. John crept through the station, taking down a few guards silently as he went. His training kicked in, and he stayed focused. He finally reached a large, sealed door. According to his information, Vera was behind it. But as he approached, a loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. "Great," John muttered. "So much for sneaking in." The door opened, and two armed guards charged at him. John ducked behind a pillar and fired back, hitting one guard in the chest. The second guard rushed him, but John was quick, knocking the man out with a well-placed punch. "This is getting messy," he said to himself. With the guards down, John rushed into the room. There in the center was Princess Vera, still bound and looking surprised to see him. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice filled with both suspicion and confusion. "Name's John Matthews," he said, quickly moving to free her. "I'm here to get you out of here." Vera frowned. "A human? Why would you risk your life for me?" "Good question," John replied, cutting through her restraints. "But let's save the deep conversations for later, okay? We need to move." Vera stood up, rubbing her wrists. She wasn't sure whether to trust this strange human, but right now he was her only chance. Without another word, they both ran toward the exit as alarms blared louder and footsteps echoed in the distance. Their path was blocked by more mercenaries, but John fought them off, his experience as a soldier showing with every precise shot. They made it back to John's ship, with enemies close behind. As the Valkyrie lifted off, Vera finally allowed herself to breathe. She had been rescued, but by a human, a species her people had always looked down upon. As the stars blurred outside the ship's window, Vera glanced at John. This was just the beginning of their escape, and she knew things would only get more complicated from here. The awkward alliance. As the Valkyrie soared away from the abandoned space station, Princess Vera sat in the co-pilot's seat, still trying to process what had just happened. She had been rescued by a human, someone she had only heard about in tales of Earth's struggles. The ship hummed around them, and she could see stars flickering outside the window, but her mind was racing. John Matthews was focused on the controls, keeping an eye on the scanners for any signs of trouble. The alarms from the space station still echoed in his ears, and he knew they couldn't relax yet. But the princess's presence beside him was distracting. He could feel her eyes on him, studying him. "What's your plan now?" Vera finally asked, breaking the silence. John shrugged, glancing at her briefly. First, we need to get out of Silurian space. Then we can figure out what to do next. Vyra raised an eyebrow. And then what? You just plan to leave me to my own devices. I can't go back to Zerathar after what happened. My family, they betrayed me. Her voice cracked a little, the pain of her betrayal creeping back in. Look, it's not my job to play therapist, John replied, trying to sound tough. I didn't sign up for a rescue mission. I just wanted to help. I didn't ask for your help. Vera shot back, her tone icy. You could have left me there. Yeah, but then I would have to live with that decision. So here we are, John said, his voice flat. He felt frustration rising. This was not how he had pictured rescuing a princess. He was used to dealing with smugglers and thieves, not royalty with attitude. Vera crossed her arms, annoyed. So you're just doing this for your own conscience. You're not really interested in my fate. John sighed. Look, I don't care about your royal issues. I just can't stand the idea of someone being treated like property. That's all. They both fell silent, each lost in their thoughts. Vyra felt a mixture of gratitude and anger. John was the first person who had come to save her, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't really care about her as a person. He saw her as a mission, a job to complete. After a few moments, Vera broke the silence again. You know, not all Xilorians are like that. Some of us want to change things. We don't all believe in the Empire's cruelty. John looked over at her, surprised. Really? You're the first Silurian I've met who actually cares about anyone other than themselves. Vyra's expression softened a little. Not everyone is as cold as my family. I just want to find a way to stop the Empire from hurting innocent people. It's not easy being a rebel in a place like Zerathar. Then what do you plan to do next? John asked, genuinely curious. I don't know yet, she admitted. But I can't go back and let Kether take the throne. He's just as cruel as our father. I need to find allies, people who believe in a better future. Sounds like you need a crew, John suggested, a small smile forming on his lips. Are you offering to help? Vyra raised an eyebrow. Not really, he said, trying to sound indifferent. But I might know a few people who would. If we can get out of Silurian space and lay low for a bit. Then we'll need to work together, Vera said, determination returning to her voice. I can help you navigate Silurian politics, and you can show me how to survive out here. John nodded, feeling a strange sense of partnership forming. It was an awkward alliance, but it was all they had. Fine, but let's keep things clear. No emotional baggage. We stick to the plan and get out of here. Vera smirked, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Deal. As they continued through the stars, the tension between them shifted. They were still two very different people from opposing worlds, but now they were united by a common goal. And deep down, they both knew that together, they might just have a chance at changing their futures. Running from the enemy. The journey to Rilos was tense. John Matthews kept the Valkyrie flying low, avoiding the bright stars and sticking close to the dark edges of space. Princess Vera sat in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes fixed on the screens, looking for any sign of danger. She could feel her heart racing. They had just escaped one threat, but now they had to watch for others. Are we almost there? Vera asked, trying to break the silence. Not yet, John replied, scanning the space ahead. We still have a few light years to go. But we need to be quick. Kether won't waste time sending ships after us. Vera shivered at the thought of her brother's anger. Kether had always been ruthless, and now he would see her as a traitor. What if he sends a fleet? What if they find us? Then we'll have to outrun them, John said, his voice steady. Stay focused. If we keep a low profile, we might just slip past them. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. Red lights flashed on the control panel, and John's heart sank. We've got company. He quickly adjusted the controls, maneuvering the Valkyrie into a tight turn. Vira's breath caught in her throat as she looked out the window. In the distance, she saw two Silurian ships approaching, their sleek designs cutting through space with deadly grace. They found us. Hang on, John shouted, pushing the ship to full speed. The engines roared as they shot forward, the stars becoming streaks of light. Vira felt her stomach lurch as the ship accelerated. The Silurian ships were gaining on them. John swerved left and right, trying to dodge their laser fire. We need to lose them. Do you know any tricks to shake them off? Vira thought quickly. There's an asteroid belt up ahead. If we can get in there, we might lose them in the rocks. Great idea, John said, his eyes focused on the path ahead. Hold on tight. They hurtled toward the asteroid belt, and John expertly piloted the Valkyrie through the chaotic field. Huge rocks floated in space, some spinning slowly while others shot past them. Vira could see the enemy ships behind them, but they had to slow down to navigate the dangers. Now's our chance, Vira shouted, her voice filled with excitement. John pressed down on the accelerator, and the Valkyrie shot forward into the belt. The ship zipped between the asteroids, weaving through gaps that seemed almost impossible. Vira felt her heart race, but she trusted John's skills. He was determined to keep them safe. Keep an eye on the scanners, John called out as he focused on piloting. Let me know if they get closer. Vira watched the screen, her pulse quickening with every passing second. The enemy ships were still following, but they were struggling to maneuver through the asteroids. They're slowing down, she exclaimed. They can't keep up. Perfect. John grinned, pushing the ship harder through the rocky maze. Just a little more. As they dodged another large asteroid, Vira noticed the enemy ships begin to spread out. They're trying to flank us, she yelled. Not on my watch, John replied, pulling hard on the controls. He made a sharp turn, sending the Valkyrie into a narrow passage between two massive rocks. The ship barely squeezed through, and Vira held her breath. But they emerged on the other side. Suddenly, they heard a loud explosion behind them. Vira turned to see one of the enemy ships collide with an asteroid. The other ship was still pursuing them, but the odds were starting to shift in their favor. Keep going, Vira urged. We can lose them. With renewed determination, John pushed the Valkyrie into overdrive. The ship sped through the asteroid field, the rocky giants flying by in a blur. Finally, they spotted a gap leading out of the belt. Now, John shouted, aiming for the exit. They burst through, escaping the chaos of the asteroids and into the open space beyond. Vira let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. We did it. Yeah, John said, grinning. But we're not safe yet. We need to get to Rilos and find allies before they regroup. Vira nodded, her heart still pounding. They had narrowly escaped, but their journey was far from over. Together, they would face whatever came next, ready to fight for their freedom. Fight or die. As the Valkyrie sped toward Ralos, Princess Vira felt a mix of excitement and fear. They had escaped the Silurian ships, but she knew they were still in danger. The galaxy was a vast place, filled with enemies and obstacles. She looked over at John Matthews, who was focused on the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. How long until we reach Ralos? Vira asked, trying to keep her voice steady. About 20 minutes if we push the engines hard enough, John replied, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. But we can't let our guard down. Kether will send more ships after us. I just know it. Vira nodded, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. What if they catch us again? I can't go back. I won't. Then we won't let that happen, John said firmly. We need to be ready to fight if it comes to that. Just then, the ship's alarms blared again. Vira jumped in her seat as red lights flashed on the control panel. What now? She gasped. Looks like we have company, John said, his voice calm but urgent. He glanced at the scanners and swore under his breath. 2 Silurian ships are closing in on us fast. They must have tracked us. Vira's heart raced. Do we have any weapons? Only a basic laser cannon, John replied, his fingers flying over the controls. It won't do much against their shields, but it's better than nothing. Then we have to fight, Vera said, determination flooding her voice. I won't go back to Zerethar. All right, let's prepare for a fight, John said, a fire igniting in his eyes. Get ready to man the cannon. Vira took a deep breath and nodded. She had never fought in her life, but she felt a surge of bravery. She jumped out of her seat and moved to the back of the ship, where the cannon was located. As she reached the cannon, she saw John maneuvering the Valkyrie with skill. The enemy ships were gaining on them, and they needed to act fast. I'm ready, she shouted, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Good. Just aim and fire when I tell you, John called back. The first enemy ship opened fire, lasers shooting toward them. John swerved the Valkyrie to the right, narrowly avoiding the blasts. Vira felt her stomach drop as the ship shook from the impact of the near miss. Now, John shouted. Vira aimed the cannon and pressed the button, releasing a beam of energy toward the enemy ship. The blast hit their shields but barely made a dent. I didn't do enough, she cried, frustration creeping in. Keep firing. We'll weaken them, John encouraged, his voice steady despite the chaos. Vira fired again, and this time, the enemy ship's shields flickered. I think I hit them, she exclaimed, feeling a rush of excitement. Great job. Keep going, John shouted, his focus unbroken as he dodged another laser blast. The second enemy ship fired again, and John twisted the Valkyrie hard to the left. Vera held her breath, praying they wouldn't be hit. The ship shuddered but avoided the blast, and she quickly took aim once more. Fire, John commanded. Vera squeezed the trigger, and the cannon unleashed another powerful shot. This time, it struck the enemy ship directly. The impact sent sparks flying, and she could see smoke billowing from their engines. Yes, we did it, she cheered, her confidence building. But there was no time to celebrate. The first enemy ship had regrouped and was preparing to fire again. Watch out, John yelled, quickly pulling the Valkyrie into a sharp dive. Vera braced herself as the ship dipped lower, narrowly escaping the incoming fire. They won't give up, she said, her heart pounding. We'll keep fighting, John said, determination etched on his face. This is our chance to show them we won't be easy prey. As they continued to dodge and fire, Vera felt a new strength inside her. This was not just about survival. It was about standing up against her enemies. She was no longer just a princess in distress. She was a fighter. Together, they fought with everything they had, determined to escape the clutches of the Empire. In that moment, Vera realized that they were truly in this together. The fight had only just begun, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The final showdown. As the Valkyrie raced toward Ralos, Princess Vera and John Matthews prepared for the final showdown. They had escaped Kether's first wave of attacks, but they knew he would not give up easily. The tension hung thick in the air as they approached the planet. Ralos is just ahead, John announced, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. We'll land there, but we need to be ready. Kether will be close behind us. Vera nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. What do we do if he finds us? We can't let him take me back. Then we'll fight, John replied, his expression fierce. But first, we need to gather some allies. Ralos is known for its rebels. If we can find them, we might have a chance. The ship shuddered as they entered Ralos's atmosphere. The planet below was a mix of rocky terrain and dense forests, with small settlements dotted throughout. John maneuvered the Valkyrie toward a hidden landing spot near a group of trees, hoping to avoid detection. They landed with a soft thud, and Vera quickly unbuckled her seatbelt. What now? She asked, feeling both nervous and excited. Now we find the rebels, John said, gathering his gear. Stick close to me and don't draw attention. We need to move fast. As they stepped out of the ship, Vera took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh air of Relos. The sounds of the forest surrounded them, birds chirping, leaves rustling, and the distant hum of life. But beneath the beauty, she felt the weight of danger looming. Where do we start? Vera asked, glancing around. Let's head toward the nearest settlement, John suggested, pointing to a small village in the distance. We can ask around there. They moved cautiously through the trees, keeping their voices low. As they neared the village, Vera spotted a group of people gathered near a makeshift market. They looked rugged, their clothes worn from hardship. Vera could see the determination in their eyes, and she felt a flicker of hope. We need to talk to them, Vera whispered, nodding toward the crowd. As they approached, Vera noticed a man with a scar across his cheek, shouting to the others about the recent Silurian raids. We can't let them control our lives, he urged. We must fight back. John stepped forward, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. Excuse me, we need your help. The crowd turned to look at them, suspicion in their eyes. Who are you? The scared man demanded, crossing his arms. I'm John, and this is Princess Vera of Sailor, John said boldly. We escaped the Empire, and we need allies. Kether is coming for us, and he won't stop until he finds us. Vera felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. Would they believe them? Would they help? The scared man studied them closely. Why should we trust a princess? The Silurian Empire has caused us pain for too long. I understand your anger, Vera spoke up, her voice strong. But not all of us support the Empire. I want to change things. I want to fight against Kether and the oppression he brings. The crowd murmured among themselves. After a moment, the scared man nodded slowly. If you truly wish to fight against Kether, we will help. But know this, the Empire is powerful, and we will not go down without a fight. Thank you, John said, relief washing over him. We need to prepare. Kether will come, and we must be ready. Just as they began to discuss their plans, a loud alarm echoed in the distance. Vera's heart dropped. It's him. He's found us. Everyone, get ready. The scared man shouted, rallying the villagers. Prepare for battle. Chaos erupted as villagers grabbed weapons and positioned themselves around the settlement. Vera felt a mix of fear and determination. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. John turned to Vera, his eyes filled with purpose. Stay close to me. We'll fight together. Vera nodded, her heart racing. They were ready to face Kether and his forces. This was no longer just about her escape. It was about freedom for all those who had suffered under the Empire. As the enemy ships descended from the sky, darkening the sun, Vera felt a surge of strength. They would fight or die, but they would not go quietly into the night. Together, they would stand against the darkness, and she was ready to lead the charge. A new beginning. The air was thick with tension as the rebel fighters gathered in the village, their faces set with determination. Princess Vera stood at the forefront, heart pounding in her chest. John Matthews stood beside her, ready to face the coming storm. Kether's ships loomed above, blocking out the sun and casting shadows over the settlement. Remember, we fight for our freedom, the scared man shouted, rallying the villagers. We will not let Kether take this place from us. Stand together. Vera felt a surge of courage as she looked at the faces around her. Each person was ready to risk everything, not just for her, but for their own future. We will fight, she shouted, her voice strong and clear. We will not back down. The sound of engines filled the air as the Silurian ships descended, their laser cannons aimed at the ground. Vera's stomach twisted in knots, but she forced herself to focus. John, what's the plan? She asked, turning to him. We need to create a distraction, he replied, his eyes scanning the sky. If we can draw their fire away from the village, we'll have a better chance. Vera nodded, her mind racing. I can draw their attention. I'm the target they want. No, John said firmly, grabbing her arm. You're a princess, and they'll come after you first. We can't risk it. But I have to do something. Vera insisted. This is my fight too. Just then, a loud boom shook the ground as the first enemy ship opened fire. The villagers scattered and chaos erupted. John and Vera jumped into action, grabbing weapons from the ground. Stay close, John shouted, leading her toward a group of rebels who were setting up defenses. As they prepared for battle, Vera's heart raced with fear and excitement. She had never imagined she would be fighting like this. The sounds of explosions echoed around them, and she could see the enemy ships firing at the village. Now, the scared man yelled, and a volley of laser fire erupted from the rebels, targeting the enemy ships. Vera joined in, firing her weapon with determination. The Silurian ships returned fire, and one of the rebel fighters was hit, collapsing to the ground. Vera felt a wave of despair wash over her, but she pushed it aside. They had to keep fighting. John moved beside her, firing at the ships with expert aim. Keep going, Vera. You're doing great, he encouraged, his voice steady amid the chaos. With each blast fired, Vera felt herself growing stronger. She was no longer just a princess. She was a fighter. She was fighting for her freedom and the freedom of her people. As the battle raged on, Vera saw Kether's flagship hover above the village. It was a massive ship, its dark silhouette ominous against the sky. We need to take that ship down, she shouted to John. Let's make it happen, he replied, a fierce look in his eyes. Follow me. They moved together, darting between cover as they made their way toward the base of the flagship. The energy in the air crackled with intensity. Vera felt a sense of purpose coursing through her veins. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ground, sending debris flying. Vera stumbled, but John caught her. We need to keep moving, he urged, pulling her along. As they approached the flagship, Vera could see a group of enemy soldiers guarding the entrance. Without thinking, she raised her weapon and fired. The blast hit one of the soldiers, and he fell to the ground. Good shot, John shouted, firing alongside her. They fought their way through the chaos, determination driving them forward. Finally, they reached the entrance of the flagship. Vera took a deep breath, her heart pounding. This is it, she said, steeling herself. We're going to end this. They rushed inside, ready to confront Kether. The interior of the ship was dark and cold, and the sounds of battle echoed outside. Vera felt a mix of fear and determination. Kether will be here, John said, scanning the room. Stay alert. As if on cue, Kether appeared, flanked by his guards. You think you can defeat me? He sneered, his eyes filled with anger. You will pay for your betrayal, sister. Vera stepped forward, defiance in her voice. I will not let you rule through fear anymore. This ends now. With a fierce battle cry, they charged at Kether and his guards. The fight was brutal, but Vera felt alive, fighting not just for herself, but for everyone who had suffered under Kether's rule. As they fought, Vera realized this was more than a battle. It was a new beginning. With each strike, she was reclaiming her destiny. She would not be a pawn in her brother's game. She would fight for freedom, for her people, and for a better future.